Afternoon, councillors and staff. It's gone 4:30, so I'll open the meeting. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on this afternoon, and to the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. For councillors and staff that are in the chamber, to exit via the door leading out of the building directly across the council chambers and proceed to the footpath and await further instructions. To councillor staff and anyone speaking in open forum, this meeting has been live streamed and will be recorded and published with council's meetings. Anyone who invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. The Chair and or the General Manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. And that takes us on to item 3.2, public forum. And today, councillors, we have 7 speakers. The first speakers will be in regard to issues with the quarries. And the first speaker today is Justin Merlo for the motion. Justin, are you there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
All speakers, if they're listening at the moment, are entitled to 5 minutes, and if you go to the 4-minute mark, I'll give you a little indication that you've got a minute remaining to speak. So the floor is yours, Justin.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. So, Mayor Ingram, Deputy Mayor Wallace, councillors and council officers, thanks for the opportunity to speak today in support of our quarries project, which, if approved by council, would deliver numerous benefits, the most significant of which would be to the local community. The Rye Park Wind Farm project is approved for approximately 33,000 one-way or 66,000 two-way truck movements for construction traffic. Today, I'll just be talking in terms of two-way movements, as it gives a better indication of impacts as trucks need to go to and from the wind farm. Of the already approved 66,000 truck movements, approximately 43,000 were allocated for the transportation of quarry materials through Burra and Rye Park and along Rye Park Road, Grassy Creek Road and Dalton Road to get to the wind farm. Clearly, this is a very large number of already approved truck movements, and it represents a very significant impact of the wind farm on the local community, and particularly residents who live along the approved construction traffic route. ARDG's Quarries project is the only opportunity that would significantly reduce this impact. Our Quarries project provides the opportunity for the wind farm's truck fleet to source quarry materials from small temporary pits located within or immediately adjacent to the wind farm area, rather than from quarries located a minimum of over 100 kilometres away. These pits would only supply materials to the wind farm during its construction phase and will be closed and rehabilitated shortly thereafter. The quarries would have a very low to negligible impact, yet would provide substantial benefits to the community beyond what would be expected for such small, short-lived operations. I'll now elaborate on some of these benefits. The sourcing of quarry materials from the proposed quarries would keep truck activity focused closer to the wind farm project area and also reduce the total distance that wind farm trucks would need to travel on the public road network. Our project would significantly reduce truck movements through Burra, Rye Park and the adjoining roads. Note that while our quarries would not completely remove wind farm trucks, the net effect would be a very significant reduction in truck movements, particularly through Burra, along Rye Park Road, Yass Street through Rye Park and along Dalton Road to the main site entrance. If all quarry materials required by the wind farm were sourced from our proposed quarries, rather than from existing quarries located beyond Burra, the reduction in truck movements at key locations along the approved construction traffic route would range between 60 and 99%. Should the wind farm choose to source a portion of its quarry materials demand from alternate suppliers beyond Burra, this reduction in truck movements would not be as great, though it would still be very significant. For example, were it to only source all road-based products from the proposed quarries, then the reductions in truck movements would still be between 50 and 80%, which I'm sure you'd agree are still very significant reductions. Some important flow-on benefits of our quarries include: 1, improved amenity for residents living along and close to the approved construction traffic route. Quite simply, less trucks equals less noise equals less disturbance to residents. 2, improved road safety and reduced road damage through a major reduction in the distance travelled on the local and regional road network by trucks hauling quarry materials. Less trucks on the road equals less opportunities for interactions with other road users. 3, a substantially lower carbon footprint of the wind farm, given the reduction in distance travelled to deliver quarry materials to the project. And 4, continued use of local businesses for the provision of services critical to site establishment, operation and rehab. ARDG has engaged many local service providers since we commenced work on this project over 2 years ago, and we will continue these engagements.
You've got about a minute, Justin, to go.
Thank you. In summary, ARDG has a proven track record of responsibly developing and safely operating on and near site quarry operations to support the development of wind farms in New South Wales. These small, temporary, low impact quarry operations have delivered significant benefits to nearby communities, primarily through the reduction of truck haulage on the public road network. We trust the Council will also recognise that our project offers a unique opportunity to deliver similar benefits to the surrounding local community. Accordingly, we commend these 3 DAs to Council for approval. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for that, Justin. The second speaker today is Clayton Delmata for the motion in regard to the quarries. You there, Clayton?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, councillors, officers. Appreciate the opportunity to talk today. So I am the General Manager for the development team at Tilt Renewables. We've been developing the Rye Park Wind Farm for many, many years, and pleased to advise that we're close to the point of being able to press forward with the project. I'm obviously here to talk specifically in relation to the quarries, but just at a high level, this is a very significant project. It's a state significant development, a circa $800 million investment that will generate hundreds of jobs and tens of millions of dollars of flow-on economic benefits through your local community, and indeed at a state and federal level, very significant economic, social and environmental benefits, which we look forward to realising through progression of the wind farm. What I would say is, in relation to the quarries, this is what we've found is a very efficient and appropriate way to develop these projects. We recently completed a circa 336 megawatt project in Western Victoria, where we opened the quarry within the project footprint. And the benefits to the community and council were very much appreciated in terms of, as Justin's described, taking the pressure off the local road network. Obviously, as you can appreciate, sourcing material at, within or very close to the project is extremely beneficial for the reasons Justin's outlined, in terms of a reduction in heavy vehicle movements and improved safety and amenity for people that are in the vicinity of the project, which we do acknowledge are impacted for the duration of a project of this scale. So, I mean, just highlighting some of the key points again from our perspective for the project, and I guess the criticality for us in being able to deliver this as efficiently and with as lower impact as possible. Justin's outlined, we undertook a traffic impact assessment through the SSD and the modification application, which was approved back in April this year. We looked at sort of the worst case scenarios, where obviously we potentially had to source all of the materials off site via Burrawa, and saw in the order of, as Justin alluded, 33,000 or 66,000 two-way vehicle movements. What we're seeing is that our sort of combined movement footprint for the entire project, including sourcing material from the quarries that are outlined, results in an overall a 35% decrease, or in fact 43%, of the total project, and some 9,000 quarry heavy vehicle movements, a reduction of some 9,000 movements. So, this is quite a material reduction in the movements and the overall efficiency of the project, and something that, from our perspective, is extremely critical to being able to deliver this as efficiently as possible. What I would say is, just in terms of other materials, we're looking to, the final project footprint has reduced the turbine numbers from that originally proposed. We are sourcing water predominantly on the site, and obviously a key part of our efficient delivery is sourcing material from the quarries that's been put forward and described by ARDG and Justin and the team. Just touching on some of the other benefits, I mean, just to make clear, these materials are solely for the purpose of the wind farm, as has been outlined. Once the project's completed, then obviously they're decommissioned and rehabilitated. They're not for any other purpose, and the material must not leave the quarry until the traffic management plan associated with the wind farm is approved, and essentially all of the movements and the impacts that are described are linked and consistent with, and obviously materially improve, as has been described, the outcomes from the traffic impact assessment that was completed for the wind farm. So I think in summary for us, you know, this is really important for the project, and helping us get it there and delivering the significant benefits that come with a large renewable energy project of this scale, particularly in the current environment. As you can appreciate, it's
You've got about a minute left, Clayton.
Thank you. To get this project away and be able to deliver the environmental and economic benefits that come with it. So I probably don't have too much more to say other than just reiterating that, as I say, we have done this before very successfully on other projects, sourcing material at or close to site, and overwhelmingly the feedback we've got from the community consultative committees and the local constituents is that this is a great thing in terms of minimising the overall impact on the project. So we look forward to your support of the applications as presented. Thank you all.
Thank you for that, Clayton. The third speaker tonight is Sam Hillard, and is speaking for the motion on the quarries as well. So you're there, Sam?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Ingram, Deputy Mayor Wallace, councillors and council officers. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Sam Hillard. I work for Zenviron. We're the appointed major civil contractor for the Rye Park Wind Farm. And as the project manager for the wind farm, my role is to deliver the construction in accordance with the Tilt Renewables development consent and construction program. So I'd just like to run through some of the benefits that we see with the ARDG's proposed quarries for the project. So first up, as discussed, I'd like to talk about the impacts to the community. Being a major project, I think there's no denying that there'll be a level of disruption to the local community during the construction of the wind farm. However, the ARDG proposed quarries provide an opportunity for the project to significantly reduce this disruption by enabling us to source quarries within a close vicinity to the project. Being close to the project, there's fewer trucks, which mean fewer trucks on the road hauling through Burra to Rye Park and along the approved construction traffic route. So, as discussed, this would translate to significantly reduced amenity impact on residents living along and nearby the haul route, as well as improved road safety with less heavy vehicle interactions with the community on the road network. Given that truck movements represent the single biggest impact to the community, the forecast reduction in truck movements associated with these quarries, I think the benefit can't be overstated there. So further to that, I'd like to talk about the road dilapidation. So as the council is aware, the local road network between Burra and the wind farm will undergo significant upgrade by Zenviron as part of the wind farm works. So the large reduction in truck movements along this upgrade would significantly reduce the dilapidation on the newly upgraded road. Another point I'd like to talk about is in terms of safety. So for us, safety is the utmost importance of our company. We're just approaching our 3 million hours of construction without a single lost time injury. So we're always looking for risk mitigation strategies and ways to eliminate risks altogether from our job. So having the quarries close to the site, it's a textbook example of how we can eliminate unnecessary travel and reduce driver fatigue and risk on the roads. So this would be achieved by a significant reduction in the distance, and that would allow us as a construction company to run a much smaller haulage fleet, fewer drivers, driving over a smaller distance, so they're more familiarised with the route on a daily basis. So just to conclude, we firmly believe that the proposed small short-term quarries would provide overall benefit to the wind farm and the local community for the reasons I've outlined today. I look forward to seeing these proposed quarries come to fruition and provide Zenviron with the opportunity to reduce our impacts on the community. We respectfully request that the council take this opportunity to facilitate these benefits and hopefully approve these quarries. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for that, Sam. The next speaker today on the agenda is Michael Howe, and he's speaking against the motion in relation to the quarries. You there, Michael?
Yep, sure am, guys. How are you? Well, everybody, sorry. Good afternoon, Mr Mayor, councillors and GM. My name is Michael Howe and I'm speaking today against the development applications for the 3 related quarries. Given this is the second time round, I'll keep it pretty short and sweet. Whilst the proponent has sought to game the system by artificially splitting up the 3 quarries, they have clearly been promoted by one proponent with one sole purpose, and that is to supply the Rye Park Wind Farm project, which we've just heard. Thus, their development application should be bundled and considered designated development. Other such development of this proponent responding to other such evidence, of this is the respondent responding to requests for further information for one quarry and answering for more than one in the same communication, i.e. Barrackville and Eden Brae. Overall, the proponent has circumvented the appropriate environmental and planning law rigours that would normally be levelled at a project that would deliver the cumulative disturbance levels such as the proposed quarries. As such, we are concerned about how compliance with the potential consent conditions is achieved in terms of tonnage confirmations, footprint up to or less than 2 hectares, 8-week operational periods, or the inability to import materials to any site if blending materials was required to meet a respective material specification. Such limitations on elements of proof imposed on the development deny council and the community the mechanisms that other developments at this level would require to provide confidence that consent conditions are being complied with. Several examples of why an honest system would not seem reliable assumption in this particular case is that the proponent has tried to circumvent the planning laws to avoid designated development. The cost, the time and council contribution that should be afforded the community in such a case. The proponent is unable to provide a site development plan for each quarry in their application and via responses to the EPA. Given the limited footprint that the proponent has constrained itself to in order to get under the 2 hectare disturbance limit, this seems a relevant requirement. For an entity that states on its website this is what it does for a business, I find this as a cause for concern. In essence, if they're able to get away with this, with what they're doing, describing a project as 3 separate parts and thus denying the council its right to contributions and the community the protections of those, we think this place is
Michael, I might just jump in there just at the moment, just to err on the side of caution about maybe making some statements that are assumptions or assertions you've made that may in fact not be correct. So I'd just err on the side of caution. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. Okay. In essence, basically, this is one project. There's just not the contribution to pay for it. In closing, and as I outlined in my last address, the council on its agenda item as a local rate-paying resident and business, we would never discourage competition. We strongly believe that the proponent is disingenuous in their approach to this project. They're not putting the community interest first, but rather their own. This is basically a money grab, take jobs, projects, but not contribute to council, community or roads. All we are asking for is a level playing field, and facts are the proponent in this case has gained the planning provision to avoid clearly related projects and being determined as a designated development. The purpose of this was to clearly avoid the rigours of the full-blown EIS process and the time, costs and controls that would come out of such a process. Overall denying council and ultimately community contributions in line with associated impact and respective developments. If they were genuine in their concerns for the community, they would not deny council contributions or anyone else assuming a similar size development to 3 times 30,000 cubic metres per quarry per year for 2 years, and would be required to do so. So thank you guys thank you people for listening, and appreciate your time.
Thank you for that, Michael. Okay, so that brings the end of speakers on that subject. We've got 3 further speakers speaking in relation to the Hilltops LEP, and the first speaker in regard to that matter is Edwina Beveridge, who's speaking for the motion. Are you there, Edwina?
Yes, I am. Good evening, councillors. I'm Edwina Beveridge from Blantyre Farms. We have farms and a pig farm in the Hilltops Shire. Firstly, I'd like to thank the councillors and the council staff who put a huge amount of work into the LEP. It must feel like near the end of a marathon for you. There's a few things that I'd like to raise to your attention, particularly within the LEP, particularly the mapping, which forms part of the LEP. There's 2 maps in particular that I would like to mention. The first one is groundwater vulnerability. That map shows an area marked in blue that is groundwater vulnerable or considered groundwater vulnerable area. It covers quite a large part of the Hilltops Shire, and there's no reasoning provided why or why not an area is included. I'm very concerned about what the implications of this might be. Some examples I thought of: an orchard might want to put in an irrigation bore. They may then have to address this groundwater vulnerability.
Excuse me, Edwina, I might just jump in there. I might have misunderstood at the start. I mentioned that you were speaking for the LEP, but your comments just then seem to be speaking against the LEP. I'm not too sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I am in support of the LEP. There's just a mild area of concern in there for me, so I thought it was a good time to raise that.
The LEP that you're speaking for, is the endorsement, is what was put in the report. So I understand your point there, but I just need to be careful whether you're actually speaking for the document that's there or speaking against it.
Well, I'm for most of it. Maybe I have to say I'm against it if there's a small part of it that I'm concerned about.
And that's fine, but thank you. Wait, keep going. I'm sorry.
So if I'm going back to groundwater vulnerability, my example of where this might be a concern is if an orchard wanted to put in a bore and to provide water to irrigate their trees, they may then come across more hurdles than they normally would because their area is mapped as groundwater vulnerable without necessarily having any scientific reason behind it. The second map that I was concerned about was the biodiversity map. It shows a huge amount of biodiversity areas in our Shire. In fact, I would say it's probably bordering on 40% of the Shire being covered by biodiversity. And look, I'm all for biodiversity. We plant lots of tree lines on our farm. We do what we can to make it a better place or have better biodiversity. When I focused in on my farms, on the biodiversity map, I found that the areas of our pig sheds were all covered by biodiversity area, even though there's no trees in that area. Also, our shearing shed was covered. Some of our houses were covered that have only exotic trees planted in the gardens. Some of our new tree lines that have been planted were included, and some areas of scattered trees were included, and some areas of scattered trees weren't included. So I was starting to question how these areas were picked as being biodiverse areas. In my submission to the LEP, I mentioned these, and a lot of these have been fixed in the LEP that you're set to approve or not approve, which I'm very glad that they have now been fixed. But I do wonder, what about other farmers and other landowners who haven't addressed these issues on their farms? Several of the councillors are landowners. I wonder if you've been through your farm very carefully to check whether they've included your whole garden as a biodiverse area. So if you want to build an extension on your house, are you now going to have to pay an ecologist to come and prove that the trees you've planted in your garden that are exotic don't fit within the biodiversity? As many of you may know, I have quite a lot of experience in the planning area. As part of our pig farm development application, I have had to address misnomers like this.
Edwina, you've got about a minute remaining. Thank you.
I've had to address a salinity map that showed an area of salinity on our farm. We have no experience of salinity, and I had to pay someone, a soil scientist, to come and look and say there is no salinity issues here. So really, I'm a bit concerned about the transparency on this mapping and how what basis it was formed with. I'm worried about what problems that it may cause for the future. For ourselves, but also for other people wanting to invest or build something in the Hilltops Shire. So again, thank you for all the work that's gone into the LEP. I would hope that you might reconsider including the maps, or at least hold off until they can be ground truthed, so that you're not creating a problem for people in the Hilltops Shire in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Edwina. The next speaker on tonight's agenda is Adita in regard to speaking against the endorsement of the LEP. Are you there, Adita?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
You've got 5 minutes, Dita, and I'll give you a little warning bell at the 4-minute mark.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors, senior staff, we note that after having considered our zoning for over 8 years, Council is now ready to send the LEP to the state government for approval. Within the LEP is a proposed rezoning of our land. That rezoning will most likely wipe out millions of dollars every year of economic contribution to Hilltops Council. However, that can be prevented by you. Today, we urge you to zone our land as industrial and complete a process which has been pending since before 2010. In April of that year, all 9 councillors voted to prevent any rezoning impact on COSMAG by maintaining and not changing any zoning. That decision was taken specifically to keep COSMAG open and not shut down a business operating for almost 70 years. Over many years, we have worked tirelessly to revive what was a sick industry at a time where most other major industrial businesses in Young became bankrupt. We also voluntarily upgraded our dust emissions control systems last year without any commercial gain to reduce our emissions. That occurred after going through a very long and thorough development application process with Hilltops Council. Last month, the New South Wales EPA investigated a complaint and found that we were operating within our limits. We also maintain a 24/7 environmental complaints hotline. We have offered a number of times to Council to change our zone to residential once our plant is ready to be relocated. However, zoning to a redundant recreational zone will almost certainly lead to our bank to withdraw credit facilities without which we cannot operate. It would also jeopardize our current loan application to purchase a photometric ore sorter, which is a must for our survival. If the value of our land is lost as a result of a rezoning, which prevents its sale at the same price that our current zone allows, the security held by our bank is greatly reduced, and our current finance facilities could be withdrawn. Our 2 companies have been one of the biggest employers in Young for over 69 years. We were a large user of the railway line that Council has been trying to revive for more than 10 years. Our companies employ 38 persons, and we support many small businesses who work with us. There is no shortage of open space for public recreation in Young, and there is certainly no public benefit to be achieved by most likely destroying the operations of one of the town's biggest employers. Council can achieve both additional space for public recreation and at the same time the maintenance of the economic benefit that our 2 companies bring to the Shire by zoning our land as industrial.
Sorry, Adita, you've got about a minute left, Adita.
By zoning our land as industrial, whilst identifying other lands in the Shire for a dedicated open space for recreational zoning. It is, as you would no doubt agree, all a matter of achieving the right balance between providing for necessary public use whilst at the same time maintaining vital economic contributors to the overall well-being of the Shire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Adita.
Thank you, sir.
The last speaker in the public forum today is Nathan Barton, and he's speaking in regard to against the endorsement of the LEP. Nathan, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. At the last meeting, councillors, I spoke about some issues with respect to the RU4 land in the draft Hilltops LEP. I made the point that some modest changes to minimum lot sizes would ensure that every piece of land in these zones could be put to its most productive use. Let me briefly restate the key points. 1, many of the RU4 24 hectare lots are significantly smaller than 24 hectares, which is the minimum property size that council have specified as being required for a commercially viable farm. As these lots are smaller than 24 hectares, they are therefore not commercially viable for farming unless combined with other lots. This is, however, impractical and unaffordable. 2, much of the soil in the RU4 24 hectare zones is classified as having moderate to severe agricultural limitations. It is therefore not suitable for reserving as food bowl land. 3, there are presently no 4 hectare lots to the south of Young. The lots transition from 2 hectares to 24 hectares, or in a small region from 2 to 12 hectares. 4, there is an inequality in the way that the RU4 zones are allocated across the Young region. For example, there are RU4 4 hectare lots to the north and east of Young, but none in the south. 5, there are significant tracts of good cherry country outside of the RU4 zones, which are not being utilised. There is therefore no need to reserve all the RU4 land close to Young for cherry orchards. 6, at the same time, there is an increasing demand for rural lifestyle blocks and people wishing to move to the country. Councillors, this is a summary of the issues with the RU4 zoning as proposed in the draft Hilltops LEP. The issue is we have land that is being constrained by unworkable planning controls and results in an inequality in minimum lot sizes across the region. Let us now briefly consider why council staff have said that they cannot review the RU4 zoning as part of this draft LEP. According to the business paper, and I quote, "It is outside the scope of the LEP and dependent on release of revised mapping from the state government." Let me first address the mapping issue. As far as I can tell, council do not actually need to wait for mapping from the state government. Council already has at their disposal all the mapping they need to make a scientific and evidence-based decision on zoning. Council have, for example, cherry classification maps, which grade land from 1 to 3 for suitability for cherries, and agricultural mapping, which grades land on suitability for food bowl use from 1 to 5. We therefore know right now which land should be reserved for food bowl use and which have moderate to severe agricultural limitations and will therefore never be suitable for commercial farming. Council has the data and they do not need to wait for the state government mapping, which may never eventuate. Let us now consider whether a review of RU4 land is outside the scope of the current draft LEP. Perhaps a good way to answer this question is to ask another question. I ask you this, councillors, why would a comprehensive LEP omit serious work on RU lands? RU lands are the foundation of a rural region. We need to make sure these zones are fully optimised, as this will drive economic prosperity, productivity and innovation for years to come. Councillors, I appreciate all the work done by the council staff to get to this point. It is a monumental effort and they are to be congratulated.
You've got about a minute left to go. Thank you.
However, let us do the job properly and make the changes that need to be made to ensure that every piece of land in the Hilltops region can be put to its most productive use, whether it be commercial farm or rural lifestyle block. In conclusion, please support a motion to include a review of the RU4 lands as part of the updated LEP. Alternatively, please consider a review of RU4 zoning with a definitive timeline, regardless of whether state government mapping is received or not. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Nathan, appreciate those thoughts. Okay, councillors, that brings an end to the speakers in public forum tonight, which then leads us on to item 4 on our agenda, which is attendance and any apologies, and there'll be no apologies from councillors. Everyone's present. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the expressions of sympathy. So if we'd like to be upstanding for a moment's silence, please, for the following. We'll have a moment's silence for the passing of the following, please. Ronald Perkins, Paul McEnvoy, Margaret Purcell, Dennis McKnight, Barry O'Donnell, Bradley Stokes, Marjorie Rosen, Leslie Murray, and Mowbray Forrest. Thank you, everybody. Brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the confirmation of minutes of the Council's ordinary meeting on 28th of July 2021, and the recommendation is there. Move Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Councillor Stadnall against. Thank you. That's carried. Move on to the next item, which is any disclosures of interest. Councillors, does anyone have a disclosure of interest to put on the table before we go any further? No. Okay, thank you. Mayoral minute, nil. Mayoral report is there, councillors, for your perusal. And there's just one other thing I'd add in there, that I had a request from our federal member, Michael McCormick, to if I could do a little video encouraging people to be vaccinated in regard to COVID-19. And so we did a little clip on Monday morning, and I actually had my first needle. That prompted me to also make sure that I had my first needle. So other than that, is there any other questions? It's there in front of you, councillors. Could I have a move and a second for it to be accepted? Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. It takes me to councillors' reports, and we've got some reports there from Councillor Armstrong, Horton, O'Connor and Councillor Rolls. Would any of those councillors that have put their written report like to speak to any of those matters? Let me know. Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment about the seminar that I attended. It was put on by Parks Shire. It was a Zoom meeting on the low carbon economy and also on the circular economy in rural areas. It was very thought-provoking, and if anybody is interested, I actually have access for the next 12 months to the different speakers on different aspects of how we can move to a low carbon and circular economy in our rural areas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Any other councillor like to speak to any of their items on the listed? If not, I'll put that someone move and second that we accept those, please. Move Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Wallace. Thank you. All those in favour? Any of the other councillors who aren't listed there? We'll go around. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Meetings as minuted. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the 5th of August, the Asset Management Working Group, the 10th of August, the LEP post-exhibition workshop and the councillor briefing on the 11th of August. I also attended, I think you, Mr Mayor, and possibly Councillor Flannery, were at the LLS webinar on, I think it was the 5th of August, but it was about that time. Interestingly enough, they put out some results of their consultation through their website. They had 70 people currently do that. And all I would say is surprising they put the figures up at all because it was overwhelmingly opposed. So they're going to charge on though. So there you go.
Thank you for that, Councillor Walker. And I have to say it doesn't surprise me what you've just told me. So we go to Councillor Stadmiller.
Meetings as minuted, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Manchester.
Meetings as minuted, Mr Mayor, and the LEP meeting on the 10th of August. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. So that takes me to Community Recognition Scheme. Sorry. Do we have any nominations this month? We don't. Okay, councillors, that takes us to normally to the General Manager's report. Because we had speakers in the public forum, I would ask to have a mover and a second to bring those items forward to council to discuss now. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, councillors. So the first one we bring forward is in regard to the quarries. 21165, which is on page 142. Now, councillors, before we go too much further on the quarries, and we start with the Barrackville quarry, there's been some extra conditions added to go with the recommendation and the conditions that were listed prior. I understand they were sent out late to councillors today, but I would like now probably to hand, before we go any further, before I get a mover and a seconder, to pass to the director to maybe elaborate on the extra conditions in relation to the Barrackville quarry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. As per the speakers today, the material that is for the purpose of the Rye Park Wind Farm or being produced from the quarries is solely for the Rye Park Wind Farm. So we've sought to amend and insert condition 1A, and which reads, for the purpose, it shall not be, it's not to be sold, it's only for the purpose of the Rye Park Wind Farm. There's an amendment for a condition 2, which is to identify a calendar year. Again, that was at the request of the Rye Park Wind Farm. The other insert conditions there is to ensure safety and to ensure that the truck and dog movements are as per the SSD application. And so that's where we've asked for a vehicle count to be put on the shared access on Dalton Road, and another traffic counter down south of Dalton Road and on Yass Street out the front of the school zone. That's to ensure that speed limits are adhered to and that the traffic counts and the traffic movements are adhered to, including the times that they're allowed to leave and enter the property. The 55 laden trucks are as per the SSD on the number of truck movements, the 18-month program, and the times of 5.5 working days on approximately, which equates to 22 days a month. So that's how we came to the 55 laden truck movements over that shared access way, and that the truck and dog is no greater than 20 metres to ensure that it is as per the weight and as per what was written in the SSDA. The other in condition is therefore to do a dilapidation report for, on the actual assets of council. We note that there may be a reduction through the township of Burrawa and along Rye Park, but it does appear that there will be an increase along in the Yass Street area. So that's why we would just like to look at a dilapidation report through there as well to ensure that the assets are being maintained and cared for by the operators.
Thank you for that, Director, and appreciate those extra conditions being put in amongst that to make sure we can oversee what we're dealing with. On that note and that information being passed on, do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved, Councillor Horton. Seconded,
And a question?
Councillor Walker with the question. Councillor Walker?
From that report just given, was that 20 metres or 20 tonne?
It's a 20 metre, no greater than 20 metre truck and dog vehicle, not tonne. It would equate to 32 tonne maximum, roughly, approximately on the material.
Thank you. Councillor Manchester, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The director mentioned 55 truck movements per day, I think it was. Is that total movements or is that 110 total movements? Just a quick question.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's 55 laden, so that's truck movements one way through the traffic to the other side. So, and I think there was also that the 55 truck movements are also based on the shared. So that would be for the shared access, which is Barrackville and Eden Bray. So they would share that total, sorry.
That was, through you, Mr. Mayor, that was another question I was going to ask, whether that was the total of the 3 quarries or the which quarries it referred to. So it refers to the 3 quarries.
No,
and
no, Councillor, it just refers to the 2 quarries. The last quarry is a separate matter again.
Oh, sorry, the 2 quarries. Sorry,
yep.
2 quarries. Okay, sorry, thank you. And the next question is the road damage. How is that calculated, and what sort of input are they? Is the quarries making towards the re-establishment of the roads when they fall apart?
To the director.
Apologies there. Could I have that question answered? Question again? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, yes, Ms. Director. It's to do with the roads, the road, and the upkeep of the maintenance of the road, which under these conditions, you know, they'll probably fall apart very quickly with this sort of traffic on them. What sort of contribution is the mine making towards that upkeep, or are they responsible for that upkeep?
Yes, so they're part of the SSDA for the Rye Park, Tilt Renewables. They're responsible for the road upgrades and the increase to cater for the traffic movement. The maintenance of those roads is a repair as it's identified, and that's, sorry, I just referred to Andrew Rainsy, my offsider. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. In the recommended consent conditions, conditions have been included, which would require any public damage caused by the development to be repaired by the applicant at their full costs, at no cost to council or Transport for New South Wales. In addition, Claire did mention that prior to any works commencing, a dilapidation report on the existing condition of the road would need to be provided to council. That way council can compare the existing road condition should any public damage occur.
Thank you for that. Councillor covers it off. Councillor, does it?
It does to a certain extent, Mr. Mayor, but I just have concerns that this could turn into an argument 6 months or 12 months down the track of just what the condition of the road was and what it is now. If it does fall apart, to what extent it needs to be repaired to. I think it just leaves it a bit open to interpretation.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong's got a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I share Councillor Manchester's concerns. I would much prefer it if council's asset team would undertake a thorough asset condition assessment of the roads concerned, and as a result of those that asset condition assessment, confirm with the consultants that is indeed the condition of the road. I think that needs to be worked out well and truly before we start this. The second, I guess, issue is a point that I want to raise. I note that in the proposed amendments to the Barrackville quarry, we have a maximum of 33 vehicles no greater than 20 metres in length are permitted along Dalton Road. Yet in the Eden Bray quarry, I note that the 20 metre, no greater than 20 metres in length is omitted. Is there a reason for that, or is that just an oversight?
Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Councillor Armstrong, it would be an oversight. We will correct that as well to make sure that basically the same conditions for the Barrackville quarry should be the same as the Eden Brae quarry, and that will be included. Thank you.
I just might mention on dot point 6, insert condition 15A to read, a dilapidation report of the existing condition of Dalton Road needs to be submitted to Council prior to the commencement of any quarry operation. So I would hope that that's exactly what you're talking about, Councillor Armstrong, will be done in Council Manchester before anything starts, so we do know the condition of the road and what condition it needs to be left in when this is finished.
Mr. Mayor, my question, my statement related to, and I supported Councillor Manchester on this, I think that Council needs to undertake that assessment as well. The last is a consultant providing an opposing point of view in regards to the condition of the road. We need that very clearly established, and it needs to be understood by both parties prior to the commencement.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stadmiller has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if Council staff had done any calculations on the cost of the relevant contributions if the mine was under the one licence, being broken down into 3 based on the tonnage.
Councillor, I can answer that for you, and the answer is no, because Council staff were asked to deal with what was put in front of them, and they dealt with that accordingly. But thanks for the question. It's been mentioned before. Yep. Okay, councillors, if there's no other questions in regard to that, Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, just to put in black and white the concerns of Councillor Manchester and Councillor Armstrong, could we just have the wording amended and, if possible, put up on the screen that will ensure that Council asset management team perform a review? Just a comment on the section 94. I'm of the understanding, in fact, I discussed it with staff, that because the former Young Shire didn't have a contributions plan, it wasn't possible for one to be implemented in this case.
Did you mean Burrawa, Councillor?
Burrawa, correct, sorry, Mr. Mayor. That there wasn't a contributions plan in place, so we're not able to levy it, which is unfortunate.
Thank you, and I'll get the relevant director to work on the wording for that for you, Councillor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that Part B of the resolution will say that Council will undertake an asset condition assessment in collaboration with the developer of the assets being utilised by the quarry, being utilised by the quarry. Is that accurate, Councillor Armstrong?
Yep, we'll take that. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Director. So, given that undertaking, councillors, I'm happy to put that recommendation. All those, did I move in a second? I did. Yep. All those in favour? Aye. And we need to count. Yep. Is that? No, we've got. Councillor Armstrong, and I'm just going to get a count here.
We have Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, can I also suggest that we need to amend condition 4 for the...
Councillor Armstrong, we might have to go back and start again because I just put exactly what we had. So if you want to make another amendment, we'll stop everything and we'll start again. Any further questions in regard to this matter?
Mr. Mayor, the directors indicated that there's an error in the condition. And I'd like to make sure that the condition that Council approves is indeed the condition that includes the 20 metre, no vehicles in excess of 20 metres.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are talking about Barrackville quarrying. That additional insertion is for the Eden Brae quarry, which is not being voted on at this point. You were just voting on the Barrackville quarry, but it was noted by the director that omission would be included when we come to it.
My mistake, Mr. General Manager. Please accept my apologies, councillors.
That's fine, councillor. That's no problem at all. Questions never do any damage to anyone. So I'll go back to taking a vote on the recommendation. There, all those in favour?
We have Councillor Walker.
You have those against? Councillor Manchester against. That matter is carried. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to 21166, which is the Eden Bray Quarry. And before we do anything there, we'll just go through what we did before so staff can make councillors aware. I believe the same extra conditions have been put on this quarry, and there's some wording to be changed to include the 20 metre. I'll hand to the director.
Correct. So we will amend condition 4 to say no greater than 20 metres after the word vehicles, and we will also insert in condition 5 after the word vehicles, no greater than 20 metre, as per the quarry, as per the resolution passed for Barrackville Quarry. And I assume that you would also want the part B inserted as part of this resolution, being that and council staff to undertake an asset condition assessment in collaboration with the quarry developer.
That is exactly, yeah, that's the expectation that will happen. So there we go, councillors. So on that note, I'll have a mover and a seconder for that item. Move, Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rolls, thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillors, any questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Manchester, I can't see you voting. Councillor, you're out of picture. Councillor Manchester's against, everyone else was for, so that matter is carried. Thank you, councillors. So that takes us to 21167, the Fairburn Quarry, and our councillors, I'll hand to the director to talk about the added conditions in that, because it's a different matter. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. In regards to the number that we calculated being the 55 laden vehicles, and that the Fairburn quarry was solely within the site, we've amended the condition here to, again, number 1, insert the condition to read that the materials is solely for the purpose of the quarry. Amend condition 2 to clarify that it was a 31 year, but we also, to amend condition 4, which is basically to read no laden heavy vehicles are permitted to use public roads. This ensures that all the material being extracted out of the Fairburn quarry is for the internal roads being used by the quarries.
Thank you for that, Director. So given that, to start, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for that report? Move, Councillor Wallace, thank you. Seconded.
Rolls.
Councillor Rolls, thank you. Do I have any questions in regard to the Fairburn quarry matter? No, thank you, councillors. And on that, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next item that was spoke about, and is the next item listed on page 250, is the Hilltops Local Environmental Plan for endorsement. And given that I was the councillor who deferred that, I'm now happy enough to move that item. Seconder, Councillor Hort.
Just before, can I suggest that we suspend standing orders, Mr. Mayor, to have an open discussion on this? A few points raised.
Councillor, I understand. Before we do that, I think we need to have it moved and second before we can have any discussion. If you're suggesting we go into committee, I'm quite open to that. Once we have we've got a mover and a seconder. So, Councillor Manchester, are you asking to move into committee?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor O'Connor. The council moves into committee. All those in favour? Yep, unanimous. We're now in committee, council. So, Councillor Manchester, I presume that.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've got a few concerns that that have been raised both today in public forum and through the duration of this LEP, certainly in the last couple of months. One is one of the main ones is the COSMAG issue. I believe that we're doing the wrong thing by reclassifying this land as recreational. I can see it having a major impact on the operation of the COSMAG firm or industry. As I've mentioned to you on previous occasions, and I think anyone that's got any assets themselves, and most businesses have an asset which the bank hold part of or all of to secure an overdraft or loan facility or whatever you like to call it. And you've got it valued at $1 million or $2 million or whatever the valuation of it is.
Excuse me, Councillor Manchester. I might just jump in there. Given the direction of where this commentary is going at the moment, I would ask that we close Council to the live stream, because it sounds to me like we're starting to talk about the financial viability and commitments and obligations of an organisation which I don't believe should be publicly aired.
Well, I was just making general comment on the.
Yeah, and I haven't got a problem. I haven't got a problem with that, Councillor. I just think we probably should do it in closed and then come back out to open.
Okay, I've got no problem with that.
So, Councillors, we're back live streaming. Could I have a mover and a second to move us out of committee of a whole? Councillor Manchester moved, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Councillors, we went into closed in committee to discuss the LEP. The LEP is in front of you. The recommendation is there. I had a mover and a seconder. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a number of amendments to the LEP as displayed. The first, I'd like to remove amendment number 1 is at 7.2 terrestrial biodiversity and 7.4 groundwater vulnerability be removed from the LEP for us to consider in 5 years' time. I would like to amend the LEP under RU1 and RU4 to include horticulture as being permissible without consent. So they're on page 13 and page 14. RU1, page 14. Page 15 is in RU4, and both of them are only permissible with consent. I'd like to have them permissible without consent. I'd like to amend the LEP with regard to the COSMAG zoning so that the industrial area remains industrial and the balance be rezoned RE2. So the areas that are currently zoned or remain unzoned and RE1 become RE2. I refer to the hardened map and seek an amendment so that DP 10763, DP 1182735 and DP 753624 be zoned RU5. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Do I get a seconder? Now, with this amendment, we'll treat them one by one. So do I have the first one is to remove the mapping layers. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Manchester, thank you. So we had discussions around this, councillors. Is there any other questions in regard to that matter? If not, I'll put that amendment. All those in favour? That amendment is carried. I think everyone was for, weren't they? Everyone was for, yep. I'll do it again, councillor. Sorry, all those in favour? Against, sorry. Now, against? Councillor Horton, Councillor Rolls and Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. The First Amendment is carried. The Second Amendment is the RU1 to RU4 without consent issue. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Wallace. Thank you. Any discussion or regard to that? If not, I'll put the Second Amendment. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Yep. Against? Councillor Rolls and Councillor O'Connor. The Second Amendment is carried. The Third Amendment is in relation to CORESMAG. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Armstrong. Any questions or discussion in regard to that matter? I'll put that amendment. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Walker, Rolls, Ingram.
Walker, Rolls, Ingram, Borden, against. Pass.
The Third Amendment is carried. And the Fourth Amendment is in relation to the DP areas that Councillor mentioned.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Without seeing a map in front of me, there's a number of documents. Where are the DPs that Councillor Flannery is referring to?
Councillor Flannery, would you like to answer the question, please?
Yes, they refer to the area from the Trinity Public School. Well, just hold on. The one DP refers, I've just lost the actual DP numbers, but one of the DPs refers to the area west of the Trinity Public School between the railway line and back to Mondrel Road. So that is DP 753624. It is already categorised under the mapping as lots of varying sizes. So it remains, although it's zoned RU1, it actually has development subdivision consent under existing use, so to speak. The two DPs being DP 10763 and DP 1182735 are immediately north of back to Mondrel Road. So if you're heading out, I've forgotten the name of the road that goes under the railway bridge and heads north along the creek, it's immediately to the west of that. There's approximately 50 hectares in there, and it's already occupied by a couple of small houses.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Stadmiller. Okay, thank you. That helps everyone. So do I have a seconder for the last amendment? Councillor Horton, second that. Any other questions in relation to it? If not, I'll put Amendment 4. Councillor Armstrong has a question.
Can I just have the amendment read again, please? I'm just concerned that there's whether did Councillor Flannery say RU4 or R5?
I said that it become R5.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong? Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. On that note, I'll put the Amendment 4. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So, sorry, Councillor Wallace, jumped the gun. Noted as against that Amendment 4. So that amendment's carried. So, given that, councillors, the recommendation stands with those 4 amendments, which now are part of the recommendation. Without any further ado, I will put that matter. All those in favour? Got them? Yep. Against? Councillor Wallace and Councillor Walker. That item is carried. Thank you, councillors. We now revert back to item 12, General Manager's report. And the first item there, meeting dates and times for ordering meetings of council. I'll hand to the General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report came to be because of the rescheduling of the local government elections. So we needed to set dates for the rest of this term of council. And secondly, given the requirements to hold a meeting within 3 weeks after the the declaration of the results, which is not expected to be any earlier than the 21st of December, understanding that we have a traditionally closed council between Christmas and New Year, my recommendation is that the extraordinary council meeting be held for the first, the new council, whoever that may be, on Wednesday the 5th of January. The requirements of that first meeting of council, that there must be an oath or affirmation for the new councillors, otherwise they can't participate. Secondly, there must be the mayor and deputy mayor elections. We must set the meeting dates and times for the 22-23 year. And the final one is the determination that a councillor vacancy, should a councillor vacancy occur within the first 18 months of the council being elected, that a countback occur. And what I will say to you, councillors, is that you are not voting on whether that has occurred. That will be up to the new council. You are just voting here tonight that that is what the purpose of that extraordinary meeting should be. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that item? Move Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Flannery. Any questions or discussion? If not, I'll put that matter. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 21158, Hilltops Major Events 2021. Councillors, there's a depth report there and a recommendation given the times we're in. So do I have a mover? Move Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded Councillor Walker, thank you. Any questions in regard to that item? Councillor Wallace.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just as to the, I mean, obviously this report I imagine was written some little time ago, but I'm just wondering how likely the Picnic in the Blossoms event is likely to take place. Should we be supporting that?
Thank you. I'll hand that to the officer involved in that, which is Sarah.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Wallace, you are correct. This report was written at a time where we didn't believe we would still be in lockdown. At this point in time, no, it definitely couldn't go ahead, but it's something that we have ready to progress if we were able to do so in a COVID-safe way. So I guess, yeah, the answer to that is at the moment, no, but hopefully in the future we will be able to do that.
Thank you for that.
It's also something that we could do in future years as well. I think it's a great idea and it's something that we could certainly hold on to in the future.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stadmiller, question?
Mr. Mayor, just seeking clarification on point E, rollover all the funding from 2021, $10,000 for the Woolfest, $10,000 for the Kite Festival, and then is it $30,000 each year or $30,000 spread across the 3 years for the Cherry Festival? Just a little bit confused on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Good question. Who'd like to take the answer there? Trent?
Yeah, I can take that. It's $30,000 each year. It consists of $27,500 for marketing and $2,500 worth of research. It's under the flagship funding that was granted to the Cherry Festival. The other two are single years, but we can reapply each year for that $10,000, or in fact apply for flagship funding for the other two events when they meet the criteria.
Thank you for that. That clarifies that. Any other questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll move that. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That takes me to item 21159, cash and investment report. The report said councillors and the recommendation is to receive the statement of cash and investments as at the 31st of July, and I just note that Councillor Horton has just left the meeting temporarily. So we're there, and I had Councillor Manchester moving that. Councillor Manchester, you're just not quite on the screen. There you are. Councillor Manchester has moved it. Do I get a second to Councillor Armstrong? Any questions in regard to the report?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I note that the investments are done in accordance with Council's policy. On reviewing Council's policy on its website, it appears as though it's drastically out of date and hasn't been reviewed for many years. As a matter of urgency, can we make sure that this policy comes to the next council meeting for review?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. On that note, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Just note that Councillor Horton is absent. Yep. Item 21.160, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. Council, there's a report there and a recommendation to receive and note the report. Moved by Councillor Manchester. Seconded. Seconded. Do I have a second? Councillor Stadmiller, thank you. Any questions in regard to that report? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, Mr. Mayor. First question through you is how confident are staff in the figures presented in terms of outstanding rates?
To the CFO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are fairly confident in the figures. The majority of our current figures relate to the current year levy. We are doing reconciliations as we speak to ensure that the remainder are correct and any that we identify are being rectified as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. My next question is in relation to the process for debt recovery of outstanding rates. What is the process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the process for debt recovery, which has recently been undertaken again, has been to identify all properties which have outstanding rates and charges, and from there refer through either as a reminder notice if it's a recent outstanding debt or charge, or through to our recovery agent for older outstanding charges to commence the process of bringing those in and getting payment arrangements or full payments in place.
Is that process documented? Is that a process that's always followed?
At this stage, no, that process isn't documented. It's something that we're working to get documented very quickly.
Debts where debt collectors are requested to collect debts for erroneous charges and rates that aren't actually meant to be paid. Are they? Do we have to pay the debt collectors for that fee if we've later found out council's charges are erroneous?
No, that will not be passed on to the ratepayer.
No, what I'm asking is, do we have to pay the debt collector if council makes instructions to the debt collector to collect debts which aren't actually owed? Does the debt collector still have to be paid for the work they've done?
The debt collector only charges once we actually launch legal proceedings. So until the point that legal proceedings are reached, no, we don't. I would think that we would be identifying any erroneous debts prior to it actually reaching court.
Hopefully you'd be finding erroneous debts before you send out and engage debt collectors in the first place, but obviously that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, and all very pertinent questions. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that the Debt Collectors Council's debt recovery policy is a 4-year reviewable policy that was adopted on the 28th of July 2017. Should have been reviewed last month. Can that one come to council for review too, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is Councillor Armstrong. Part of the process for the policies we thought we were going to be in a new council, but that doesn't change the dates. Yes, that will be reviewed and brought back to you.
Councillor Manchester.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just like to comment the staff on these. I don't know if any other councillors picked it up, but certainly water usage charge and the sundry debtors. That's an improvement of about $500,000 on the water charges and about 400,000 on the sundry debtors from July through to this month. So hopefully that trend can keep going. But that's the first time I've seen a significant improvement.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. Any other questions in regard to that report? Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr. Mayor, I've just been made aware this week that some people who are being chased for outstanding rates and charges, they're going to addresses where the address is wrong and the name is correct, or they're getting it by email. And I've had a complaint that the person who received it by email thought it was a scam. So we might need to make sure that our debt collectors are ensuring that they have the correct information, names and addresses and what have you, and appear legitimate, and maybe don't go down the email path where you get lots of spam and so forth.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stadmiller, and that's been noted and will be taken on notice. Thank you. Okay, I'll put that report. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Wallace, against. Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Item 21.161, Development Application Statistics for July 2021. There's a report there, council, and a recommendation. Moved by Councillor Manchester, seconded by Councillor Horton. Thank you. Any questions in regard? Councillor Flannery's got a question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I understand all DAs have to go through the online portal now. Last I was aware, and the reason for my question, council still had on its website the forms you can download. Has that been shut down, and a default notice say to advise people to go to the online portal so they're not spending time filling out forms that they can no longer use?
Thank you, councillor. I'll throw to the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was also under the impression that we had updated our website with the correct planning portal information and where to go through, including links to DPIE planning portal website. And in alignment with that, we are reviewing all our pages in the Planning Directorate at the moment are under a review by all the teams. So we do hope that within a month or so that you will see an improvement to the information being available to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 46, excuse me, DA 2021-0191 and 190. I note that they're both rejected. Can we just get some background of why they would be rejected? They're the only ones in there that have got a rejection on there, that's all.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the documentation with the application and the information in the application were contradictory and weren't the same. We couldn't work out which application and which documentation were together, so staff had no other option but to reject those applications.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions in regard to that item? No. Thank you. I'll put that then. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 21.162, Companion Animal Revised Fees and Charges. Councillors, the report there and a recommendation. Moved, Councillor Armstrong, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rolls, thank you. Any questions in regard to that report, councillors? Councillor Walker has a question. Councillor.
Yeah, if I may, just a quick one. Impound trolleys, is that the normal shopping trolleys you see around town? On page 51.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes it is.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Rolls, you have a question? Yep.
Yeah, with the impound trolleys, does that mean that the owners of the trolleys pay that cost?
Yes, it would be. It would be, as you know, like Woolworths or IGA or those.
Yeah, okay.
So they are ones that are mainly causing disturbance. They might be located on a road, or they might be located in a creek or somewhere like that. So they're the ones. They're not ones that are just sort of parked around the taxi rank, which we know IGA will come around and collect at that time if we ask them to. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Any other questions? No. Okay, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move on to 21163, the dwelling house at 4037 Moringo Road, Young. Councillors, there's a report there and a recommendation. Mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Stadmiller. Seconded Councillor Walker. Any questions in regard to that item, councillors? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Unanimous. Councillor Manchester, yes? Yep, thank you. Just drop out of screen. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Move on to 21164, and that's the section 8.2 review of determination in regard to the carport at 147 Edward Street, Young. Councillors, the revised reports there and a recommendation for approval is there. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved Councillor Stadmiller, seconded Councillor Manchester. Any questions in regard to that item? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous. That brings me to, we did Ferryville Quarry. It's done and dusted. We did Eden Bray. We did Fairburn. Takes me to page 250 in the hard copy of the LEP, which we've done. I'll move over again to 169, which is the draft Red Hill Reserve Plan of Management 2021, with a report and a recommendation there, councillors. Someone, thank you, Councillor Walker. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. Any questions in regard to that report? Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually sent an email to the GM and the director about this report, and I believe that some movement has been made on it. I don't think I can endorse this report because I'm not sure. For a start, I found it quite confusing, especially where it talks about change the name of the Act. It's a completely new Act that we're talking about. And I actually looked up the Act, and I'm not sure if the Plan of Management actually conforms to the requirements of the Act. So I would rather staff just review the whole report before it's put to us to accept, because I just don't want us to be in breach of the requirements of the new Plan of Management Act that has come in. There's not been a change of name. It's a completely new Act that we're talking about, and I'm not sure that we're actually conforming in our report to the Act as such.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rolls. Before I throw to the Director to answer those concerns, I would mention to you, are you foreshadowing a motion? Councillor Rolls.
Well, yes, I most probably am.
And that motion would be?
That we defer this report until further consultation has been made as to the correct format and manner in which the report and the Plan of Management is presented.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. There's the deferred motion. What I'll do now is I'll throw to the relevant Director, Beleen, to answer those questions or queries. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, the concerns were raised yesterday regarding the format of the report and the acts that are referenced. This was a plan of management that was prepared by the Red Hill Reserve Management Committee. We have been in contact with them and they are more than happy to revise or review what the report says, and we will take guidance from council on that. The report was out on consultation for 28 days. We incorporated all the corrections, provided that to the Red Hill Management Reserve Committee, and they are aware that there are some concerns as to the format and the acts being referenced. So we will take it back to them, and they are aware that they need to review that report.
Thank you for that, Director. So what I'm taking from there is I've had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that's there. So just hearing, and we all took that advice on board, I'll put the recommendation that was moved and seconded, and if that was to fail, then we'll go to the foreshadowed. So all those in favour of the recommendation that's in front of us that was moved and seconded? Councillor Walker and Councillor Wallace. Those against? That recommendation is lost. We will now seek a seconder for the foreshadowed motion. And Councillor O'Connor is happy to do that. Councillors, we heard Councillor Roll's foreshadowed motion, which is to defer the matter to seek further advice. That's a summary of it. Councillor Rolls, I hope you're happy with that. And that being the case, I'm going to move in a second. I'll put that foreshadowed motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Wallace against. That foreshadowed motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Moves me on to 21-170. Request for extension 1920 and 2021 financial assistance and sponsorship program. Before we do anything with it, I'll hand to the General Manager to speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It has been pointed out, technically we cannot make the recommendation to move the money from last year to this year. Technically, the money that was approved as a budgetary item as part of the financial assistance and sponsorship program for last year, and it was meant to be acquitted last year. In the intervening time, we received a request from the two community groups to move that, to spend that money in this year. So procedurally, we cannot adopt the recommendation to endorse a variation requested from the funding source as articulated. So the recommendation from staff would be that A is receive and note the report, and B, well, it's B or C. B, adopt the recommendation to endorse the variation with those grant funds being taken from this financial year's financial assistance and sponsorship program, or alternatively, and this is where I'm in your hands, councillors, or alternatively, it not be agreed and those two groups resubmit as part of the financial assistance and sponsorship program for this year. My recommendation would be for the former, given that they had gone through the process and had been approved for the spending of that money for the purposes. However, there is a process where they could be reassessed this year. I'm in your hands, councillors. Thank you.
Councillors, I'll just get this process right now, taking that on board. My understanding from what's just been said is we can't move and do anything with the recommendation that's there. So I guess I'm seeking for an amendment to the recommendation, or so that we can deal with this matter. Otherwise, the matter will have to lapse. Councillor Flannery.
Question, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. What happened to the money if they, I guess we vote on funds and we vote on these grant funds being made available to the various community groups. So what happened to the money if they didn't take it up?
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. The money has not been expended.
So it's presumably...
And it's through you, Mr. Mayor. The money will just return to the bottom line for the last financial year. It just flows through.
So there is the option, I'm not suggesting it, this is a question. There is the option that that money that wasn't expended be added to the community grants for this year.
No, because the funding source was from last year. The recommendation that I put before councillors is the funding source would be from this year's financial assistance grants. The technical point that was raised to me by a councillor is that you cannot move money from last year to this year.
Well, presumably you can with a vote of when you do the budget review process, to the extent that we've underspent or overspent money for any item, you have to vote that through as part of the QBR.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that is the case, yes.
But we didn't actually, my understanding is we didn't actually do that, did we? No. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Armstrong.
Question, given that these are different projects, in the case of the second proponent, it's a different project, admittedly the same organisation. I don't think it's really appropriate that council simply roll the money over, as is suggested. I think that these probably should come back to the committee again, because the committee actually considered the project rather than the organisation. And in this instance, the project isn't being considered as the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. And I probably tend to agree with when any organisation is successful getting funding, and then for one reason or other it doesn't happen, and then it may change as to where that funding is going and what it's going to do. I think it probably should come again to the same sponsorship fund that it came out of, and I'd imagine I'd be very disturbed if it wasn't given the tick of approval when it came before council again. We just need to get this right about adopt the recommendation to endorse the variation. I don't think we can do that, and I'm going to have to foreshadow a motion. Well, Councillor Armstrong, I don't know if you've thought about foreshadowing a motion, so that, because I don't believe we can adopt the recommendations there, and if we vote and we don't accept that, the matter just falls away unless we've got a foreshadowed motion.
Mr. If I can, I'll foreshadow a motion that council include these two projects in the 2021/2022 financial assistance programs.
Thank you for that, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Manchester, did you have a question? Sorry, did I see your hand?
Yeah, actually, I was going to foreshadow the motion that Councillor Armstrong put forward, that it be moved to the funding. I assume it's the funding for the 21/22 year, but yeah, I was just going to move that as a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Okay, so we've got taking all that on board, councillors. We've got a report and a recommendation there, and we've got a foreshadowed motion. So let's go back to start with me. Did I have a mover and a seconder? No, I went to the General Manager first, so I probably should have got a mover and a seconder for that. And if we haven't got a mover and a seconder, it lapses, and we go straight to the foreshadowed motion, which is Councillor Armstrong's. Would you like to repeat that foreshadowed motion, please? And I'll get a seconder then.
That council refer the applications listed in report 21/170 to the 2021/2022 financial assistance grants.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Second to Councillor Horton. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, on that understanding, I'll put the foreshadowed motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Stadmiller is against. Thank you, councillors. That's dealt with. 21/171. I'm after. 171. Sorry.
Could I? I'm not moving a motion, but could we write to those two organisations explaining why we can't just vote the money over?
That will be done. Yep.
Yes.
For sure. Yep. Thank you. 21/171. Transport for New South Wales Safer Roads Program. Councillors, have the report there and recommendation to receive and note the report. I have a mover and a seconder to start with. Moved Councillor Armstrong. Seconded. I'll second it. Any questions in regard to that item? Councillor Flannery.
Question, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, noting the condition of council roads because of the wet weather, I asked the General Manager or the Director, is there any way we can move some of this money, like all of it, to heavy patching? Because I think I know Cusacks Road, Gaylong Road pretty well, and I'm pretty sure we could find better uses than putting. You don't need those little dints on the road. You know, if you're driving off, you just hit the edge and you find plenty of potholes. So we've already had the rain create those for us. Yeah, could we please be advised whether we can move that into some heavy patching money?
I'll throw to the Director of Infrastructure.
Which I will note would be a safer road program.
Thank you, Councillor. You there, Director? Pauline.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. Those proposals that we have presented in the paper are put together against the requirements of the Safer Roads project. I will also note that this funding application closes on the 31st of August, and those roads were selected against what is listed in there regarding vehicle incidences in the intersections and why those roads were identified as part of the application process. Those are the reasons why we can apply for that funding. Heavy patching is not one of those reasons why we can apply. We are going to be investigating the impact of our road network after all the rain, and we will look at other funding sources as we can, for example, block grant funding, etc. But for this particular funding program, we've used the criteria that they have in their application to ensure that we can be successfully receive that funding, and the paper steps out why we apply for those roads. So unless we agree to go forward on this application, the heavy patching is probably not going to fulfill the requirements of the funding to ensure that we are successful in the application.
Thank you for that. Councillor Armstrong, do you have a question?
Yes, just a question in regard to the actual items 1 and 2. Will council staff be involved in or be undertaking the investigation, survey and design for the roundabout treatments in 1 and 2, or will they be outsourced?
Director.
Councillor Armstrong, it will be through you, Mr Mayor. It will be based on, at the time, once we receive the funding, the resources that we have available, and we will apply those resources. So at this point in time, we can't say it will definitely be council doing the design. We will make use of the resources available to ensure that we can meet the requirements of the funding should we get it.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
And that's another question in regards to the proposed roundabout at Lovell and Lynch Streets. I know that there's a significant amount of works being undertaken there in recent times. Will this roundabout treatment be complementary to the existing works, or will the existing works be taken out to facilitate the roundabout?
At this point in time, the information I have is that it will be complementary. Lovell Street is a heavy vehicle route that a lot of heavy vehicles traffic on, so it is part of that whole scope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery, sorry.
Question or comment, Mr Mayor. Noting that they're heavy vehicle routes, and when we at Harden many years ago thought we would try and get a roundabout put in on a heavy vehicle route to try and actually slow the trucks down through the intersection, we had to go through RMS as they were, well, I think they still are, to get their concurrence for a roundabout. And I kid you not, Mr Mayor, $5.4 million later, we decided we didn't have the money to spend on it. Is it even worth spending? Well, I would doubt we'd get anywhere near the survey design and investigative work for $75,000, given we'll have to get RMS concurrence with it. Does the director have a view on it? And I'm very serious about those numbers. It just blew us out of the water. We had one meeting in Wagga with RMS and went home with our tails between our legs.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just throw to the Director if you'd like to address that or...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, this is only for design, survey and costing, and it is an opportunity for us where we often don't get an opportunity to actually get funding for survey and design. This is an opportunity for us to do so, and Lovell Street at this point in time is not a state road. It's still a regional road under Council's care and control. So although it is a bypass for heavy vehicles so that we don't have people going down Burrawa Street, where a portion of Burrawa Street is actually part of the state road network, we will certainly be in collaboration with Transport for New South Wales. It is an opportunity, and that's what the staff have seen as an opportunity, is to get paid to do some design and survey works to understand the extent of the works, and that what you see, the 75,000 for those two line items, is merely about doing design and survey.
Thank you for that, Director. Okay, councillors, that being pointed out to us, the report's there and the recommendation is there. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 21-172 is a works report. There's a recommendation there, councillors, with the report. Moved, Councillor Flannery, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Horton, thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Flannery.
I have been beating on about it for a few meetings now. Mopperty Road, it's got water running down around the drains. There's now significant potholes in it, as there are a number of roads. But look, I've lost the Peak View. South, I think it is, of Peak View. The property Peak View Road. There's an and on the, I'll say, northwest side of McKean's Bridge, there's a trail of water running around the road there and has been for a number of months. Could council please look at it and get two blokes with a shovel or a mini excavator and clean the drain out?
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery, and I understand one of our officers who's in control of those types of works has been off work for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But, so maybe someone underneath that level needs to take a look at that. Any other questions in regard to that report? If not, I'll put that report. All those in favour? Again, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 173 is the action summary report, councillors, with it there, and to note the status of the action report.
Mr. Mayor, an amendment.
Amendment to the recommendation of note the status of the action report. Yep.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, if possible.
Before we do it, Councillor, I'll just get a mover in a second so we can do this in process. So would you like to move it? Councillor Flannery moved it. Seconded, Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Stadmiller.
Yeah, just to add to the recommendation that a report come back to council as to the status of the lighting at Roberts Park. I don't believe it's still been installed, and it's sitting down at the council depot waiting for someone to install it. It was one of the first projects funded under the new council, and it needs to be done. Thank you.
Councillor, I'm happy to throw to the Director if she's got any information on that right now before we go any further. Director Boleen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just unmuting myself. That project is currently underway and will be delivered in the second half of this year. And it is part of a SCF funding program, and we will continue to deliver on that project. We have already obtained some extension from the funding agent so that we can continue to deliver the project.
Okay, that's fine. I still don't see a problem. We can still have Councillor Stadmiller's amendment to go in there if we like. Councillor Flannery's got a question.
Look, it's exactly the same question, Mr. Mayor. That money was awarded over 5 years ago. It was awarded actually as the very first round of the amalgamation $14 million kitty. I think it's high time that those lights were put up. And I'm going to beat on about this because I've spoken to the General Manager a number of times. I've spoken to the Director back in April. Touch footy had to be split over 2 rounds, 2 weekends, or 2 weeks, sorry, because there wasn't adequate lighting at the park I asked for temporary lights to be put up privately. Nothing was done about it. The rugby union team have had to train all winter under one power pole at one end of the field because they've had no lighting. 5.5 years long, we have been waiting for lights down there and nothing has been done. There is not one single project in Harden that council has delivered as part of the SCC money where they have been solely responsible. The only projects that have been delivered have been ones where the community, such as as McLean Oval, the tennis courts, the race course, where the community has delivered them, has not. Perhaps Mechanics Institute Council might have painted and put air conditioning in, but we have not delivered any projects. High time they got done. The pool lights at Harden haven't been done. Murrumbulla Creek has had more starts and stops than an old V8 ute. And the lights are simply a joke. Can we get them done, please?
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. And I'll just take it from what the Director said, that the lights that we're talking about and Councillor Stadmill referred to, how close are we? You say the second half of the year. We're in the second half of the year, so can we have a bit more clarification tonight just about where we are up to then with Director?
I will provide an update in the councillor newsletter through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. So we understand, and I agree that we need to get. So, Councillor Stadmill, I'll go back to your amendment. Would you like to just word something that we put in there so it's documented?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to report on the status of the installation of the lights to be added to receive and note the report. And just another comment too, the second half of the year will miss the start of the touch football season, which I believe starts early October. So they need to be in within the next 4 to 6 weeks, really, or we're going to run into the same problems again with people unable to play football games. In one of the biggest sport in Harden.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, just don't, the way things happen, I don't know about the timeline there, but I'm happy to have that amendment put with the motion. I have a seconder for that amendment to go with that is Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Any other discussion in regard to that matter? No, I'll move that recommendation with, before I do that, the amendment here was accepted by Councillor Flannery, so that's fine, it becomes part of the motion. I'll now put that. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 21174, media releases and Office of Local Government circulars. Councillor is there, the report's there, the recommendation. Moved, Councillor Horton, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Walker, thank you. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Takes me to 175, committee reports requiring no action. They're minutes moved. Councillor Horton, and I'll just say before that, it's pleasing to see, and Councillor Walker would be pleased to see that the minutes of the town ban have been added to Councillor Walker, so it's very good, thank you. And that was seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors, that's unanimous. Questions without notice, nil. Notice of motion, we have a notice of motion put forward by Councillor Armstrong in relation to draft Hilltops Council Customer Service Policy. Councillor Armstrong like to speak to his notice of motion before we put the recommendation. Maybe I'll get a mover and a seconder first for the item so we can discuss it. Councillor Wallace has moved it and Councillor Horton has seconded it. I'll hand the floor to Councillor Armstrong if he likes to speak to his notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In bringing this notice of motion to Council, I believe that Council as an organisation and a team has an opportunity to commit to providing a measurable and highly visible level of customer service. This draft policy is not perfect, but it is workable, implementable, and has connections to existing policies in place at Hilltops Council. I believe that if Council is able to retain public confidence in its effectiveness to engage, it must commit itself to a policy that addresses the most commonly raised individual concern in our community, the issue of personal interaction via communication of some kind and the perceived lack of timely organisational response needs to be addressed. Mr. Mayor, it's been 5 years since the formation of Hilltops Council, neither council nor its community should wait any longer. Organisational response to customer requests must be enshrined as a business norm and a level of urgency attached to each and every request for service. The failure to acknowledge or respond to a reasonable formal request for service is not a satisfactory outcome for council or its team. It is only by committing to a customer service standard and measuring performance against such standard that council can hope to move forward in an area of customer service delivery that all customers, both external and internal, will find equitable and effective. While requirements such as first point of touch recording and record keeping, implementation of response time targets and response time performance reporting may seem onerous to some, they are not insurmountable and have been adequately met in the past. All it takes is a desire to improve and an unfailing commitment to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, on a couple of fronts for taking the effort and the time to put the draft policy together, and your commentary that went with it. Does any other councillor have any questions in regard to Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to echo your sentiments there. I think it is incredibly commendable that Councillor Armstrong has done this.
The customer service policy that Councillor Armstrong put up, and again, I commend him for doing it and the work he's done. Are there any other questions in regard to it? Councillor, before I put it up, Councillor Manchester.
Yeah, just a comment. Look, I certainly commend Councillor Armstrong in putting this forward and whoever else was involved in it. But the piece of paper is great, but unless it's followed through, it means absolutely nothing. You know, we've got you find the first point of call. You know, the young girls or young men that answer the phone, they get put in a position because when they pass it on, nothing happens, and that's the problem we've got. It's the people that face the public, do the right thing. It's the people behind the scene that's letting those part of the team down, and that's what we need to, and the general manager needs to correct. It's you know, the girls and the young blokes on the go, the happiest smile in the world, and handle the customer really well, but the satisfaction behind the screen doors after that is where it lacks, and it's and we need to correct that. But the piece of paper is great, but unless it's followed through, it means absolutely nothing, and that's what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years. We can't be faceless people. We've got to be out there with the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor, and I'm very much looking forward to the colourful graphs that we used to be provided with. Councillor Wallace will remember them to show that they were being met. I've got a question from, I'll go to Councillor Armstrong, then to Councillor Rolls.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. What I'd like to do, the document that's presented here is not the document that was provided in my notice of motion. And in particular, I refer to the Appendix 2 definitions. The definitions that are used there are not contained within this policy. They come out of a different policy. I'd like this council to consider removing Appendix 2 entirely when they consider this particular draft customer service policy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I apologise for that. As this is your policy, it should have been lifted directly. So there's no question; it just needs to be removed because it's on your notice of motion.
Correct.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rolls.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just have concerns with some of the comments made by Councillor Wallace. If we refer to the Code of Meeting Practice Policy, and if we go to 1511D, we're told a councillor commits an act of disorder if the councillor at a meeting of the council or a committee of the council insults or makes personal reflections.
Councillor Rolls, are you moving a point of order?
Yes, I think I am. Personal reflections on or imputes improper motives to any other council official. And to my mind, some of the comments made by Councillor Wallace were personal reflections, and on the actions of a council official, and I don't feel that this is the right place for those comments to be made.
Councillor Rolls, I get to decide on these point of orders, and while Councillor Wallace referred to the organisation, so on that matter, your point of order stands, and I'll speak to Councillor Wallace when we're offline in regard to that matter. Thank you, Councillor Rolls.
Thank you,
Point
Mr.
of order
Mayor.
stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Back to our customer service policy. If we've got no more questions in regard to that. Oh, sorry, Councillor Horton's here beside me. I miss him all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's overdue to have a customer policy. We need it urgently. I've had bad experiences dealing with the Hilltops Council. I've had bad experiences dealing with the Harden Council years ago. It's a common concern in most councils, I would suggest. Staff, in my view, can't be blamed. They have to be trained. It's not something you're born with, it's something that you're trained in. And big companies that have good customer service train their staff every year, maybe 6 monthly, and change their strategies. Customer service is something you learn, and our staff need to be trained, but not by in-house staff. They need to be trained by professional customer service orientated people who know all about customer service. We know all about roads and removing waste and all the other good things we do, but more importantly than the roads and the waste and the sewerage is the customer. Our ratepayers, they are customers and they deserve to get 100% service all the time. Councillor Wallace, just absolutely disgraceful what happened there. And I could relate a few things that's happened to me in relation to the race, but I don't want to go on that now. Our staff need to be trained by outside professionals, not government staff, outside professional people in the real world. And Councillor Manchester hit the nail on the head in my view. It's good to teach customer service and to have people giving customer service, but they must be accountable. They have to be kept accountable. If somebody rings up council with a problem and it can't be answered there and then, and the person that takes the call says, I'll get so-and-so to call you back, and that's the end of it. Does the general manager know whether so-and-so did call that customer back who wanted to spend 20 million on a block of land here to build a mattress factory? We need, all staff have to be accountable and there have to be checks put in place. And I was involved in this many years ago, before computers. It would be much, much easier these days to put these checks in place on computers. When somebody phones in, it's all recorded, exactly what it was about, the name of the guy, the phone number, etc., and what was the end result. Was it passed on to somebody? If it was passed on to somebody, we need to check that somebody did something about it. As it is now, we don't know. You ring it, say, oh no, I left a message for Bill Smith. He was on holidays at the time. But nobody knows where that happened. And so accountability, as Councillor Manchester was referring to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. On that note, I'm going to put the item. All those in, Councillor Walker, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, switch this on. Thank you. Look, I'd like to come to a meeting and dwell on the 98% outstanding service that the council provides, not the 2% that misunfortunate they can target. Unfortunately, I think the staff does an outstanding job. I know I did something wrong once. I think, I'm not too sure, but I got targeted. But all of us make mistakes, and I think we've got to be building on the outstanding service that we do deliver, and not build on a few unfortunate mishaps.
Thank you, Councillor Walker, and very pertinent comments, of course they are. Councillor Flannery, before I put it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, we've probably heard enough of everyone, but I endorse, I think, everyone's comments. However, I do hear what is a very frustrating number of complaints that council just don't respond, and hopefully this policy will assist in dealing with it, because hopefully everyone will realise that we've now got a policy that says, you know, council will acknowledge all written requests or inquiries within 7 working days. So that's the benchmark, and that the more detailed responses will be provided within 14 days. The reality is the buck stops with all of us. It stops with us as councillors, because we should have had this policy in place years ago. It stops with the General Manager to ensure that the staff are adhering to this policy now. But I do think it undermines the whole organisation. It undermines all the work that everyone does. Us as councillors that are attending meetings, subcommittee meetings, being in the public face. It undermines the hard work that the staff do, because yes, I think they work their butt off, but there is a frustrating amount of unanswered inquiries, unanswered responses that just undermines everyone's hard work. To some extent, you might as well not turn up. If you're not going to tell people what you're doing by getting back to them, we've got to read our emails, read our texts, and tick off, have I responded, have I dealt with the matter? And I think that's the challenge to everyone, because when I have dealt with other councils, and a couple of them, some do it so much better. And I tell you what, you feel like doing business with them. So we can say what we like, but that's the challenge, to be a council that people want to do business with. And unfortunately, I'm hearing more of the opposite at the moment. So I think there's a challenge to all of us there. But as much as I congratulate the hard work that the staff do, if you're not checking your emails and making sure you have dealt with matters, well, then you're letting yourself down and you're letting others down.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. And again, all very pertinent points, and your point about, and your other councillors acknowledging the Councillor Walker said the 95% that staff get right, and as councillors, yes, we have to take part of responsibility as well, and not shy away from that. I thank everyone for their input in relation to that. I think it's been discussed enough, but I'm going to put the matter. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Okay, I would now ask councillors to move, Councillor Manchester, and to move us into confidential. Oh, sorry, Councillor Manchester, I thought you were moving.
I'll move that we go into confidential, Mr Mayor, but I want to excuse myself from the meeting. I just realised what time it was. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Do I have a seconder to move into closed, please? Councillor Armstrong, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Councillor Manchester left the meeting at whatever time I'm going to watch. Thank you. So,
if the General Manager reads the resolutions,
that's exactly right, Councillor Armstrong. The General Manager just has to read the resolutions of those matters enclosed, which I'll hand to the General Manager just about now.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the first report that was considered by councillors within confidential was 21/178, request for commemorative naming of Wombat Street Roundabout. The recommendation that was approved is A, receive and note the report, and B, adopt the recommendation to decline the request for naming and erection of a memorial park at the intersection of Wombat and Berthrong Streets, Young. The next report is 21/179, being RFT 587 of 2021, supply and disposal of 2 gravel trucks. It was resolved that A, council note and receive the report, B, endorse the purchase of 2 Mack Anthem trucks and the trade value of the 2 Caterpillar trucks, C, accept the tender of the successful applicant for the delivery of 1 Mack Anthem 6x4 rigid MP8 gravel truck, accept the tender of the successful tender for the trade of council asset number 10277 Caterpillar CT6 10B gravel truck, E, accept the tender of the successful tenderer for the supply and delivery of 1 Mack Anthem 6x4 rigid MP8 gravel truck, F, accept the tender of the successful tender for the trade of council asset number 10283 Caterpillar CT6 10B gravel truck, And G, delegate to the General Manager the authority to execute all necessary documentation associated with accepting that tender. The next report that was discussed was 21/180, commencement of Section 713, sale of land for unpaid rates and charges. And it was resolved that A, pursuant to Section 713 and other relevant sections of the Local Government Act, authorises sale proceedings to sell the properties listed in this report at a public auction at a date and place to be determined. Appoint Outstanding Collections Australia Proprietary Limited to administer the sales on Council's behalf. C, authorises Council staff and Outstanding Collections Australia Proprietary Limited to propose with the necessary arrangements pertaining to the sale of the properties listed in this report as set out in the Local Government Act 1993 and Local Government General Regulation 2005. D, the Council delegates authority to the General Manager to take the following actions pertaining to the properties specified in the report. Roman numeral 1, to withdraw from sale any property that prior to the commencement of the auction has had all rates and charges, including expenses of Council incurred in connection with the sale, paid in full. Roman numeral 2, to withdraw any property from sale for technical or legal reasons. Roman numeral 3, to set reserve prices for sale of properties at auction. Roman numeral 4, to negotiate by private treaty and accept offers for sale of any property that fails to sell at auction. Roman numeral 5, to execute sale and purchase contracts and property transfer documents under Council's common seal and or by the General Manager. And finally, it was adopted to accept a late report in relation to late report 21/181, review of Council solar panel sites electricity supply, and it was resolved to receive and note that report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. And on that note, I'll call a close to our council meeting tonight. Thank you, staff, and thank you very much, councillors.